Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf. It's almost the end of the year. It's the 22nd of December now, and I just realized because I upload on Sundays and Wednesdays most of the time. Last Wednesday I didn't because I was traveling. But anyway, if I upload Sundays and Wednesdays, it would mean that I only have, including this one, 3 videos left for this year. And so I thought I should, at least one of those videos should be a tag, because if you're following my channel, you know that I have a backlog of, I don't know, 10 or something tags, and I'm not going to be able to do all of them this year, and I will probably just start fresh in 2020 and not look at the backlog. But anyway, I thought I should at least do one, and I decided to do one that I was tagged in September or something. At least it was created in September by Steve over at Steve Donoghue, who saw a video by Claudia from the Spinster's library. And as Steve does, he weaponized that video into a tag. And it's all about BookTube and the side effects, quote unquote, of BookTube. So I thought that is a good tag to end my 2019 tag year with. And as always, you know me. I can't remember a thing, so I have the questions on my computer screen over here. And the first 3 questions I will answer in one. The first is about hate comments, troll comments, creepy comments, scammy emails, pushy authors. So they are sort of, I think they belong together, so I will answer them in one go. I have to say that I'm pretty lucky regarding, unpleasant comments or troll comments. I hardly ever have them. My viewers are just nice most of the time. I have the occasional, rude comment, and once or twice I started BookTube 3.5 years ago, so in May 2016. So that's quite a long time. And I have maybe accumulated over these 3.5 years, I don't know, 5 or 6 comments that were really nasty, cursing or, just not discussing anything or disagreeing with me, but just calling me names or whatever. And in the beginning, I was, when I had the first one, and now, like I said, now and then I get a rude comment. I didn't quite know how to deal with it, whether to engage, and I started in the early days. Listen to me, the early days, 3.5 years ago. I started, I tried to answer, but then at a certain point, last year or something, I thought, no, I'm just not gonna bother. I know YouTube is a public forum, but it's still my channel. And if I don't like a comment, if I think it's rude or insulting or whatever, I just delete it. And if the person is really using cursing language, I block the user. I mean, sometimes I get rude comments that I will leave in the comment section because it's not that bad. I just ignore them and don't answer them because I really try to answer all of my comments. I'm not always succeeding, but I try. So I have these sort of once or twice that I will really ignore a comment, but if it's getting ruder than just ignoring, I will delete it, and if it's really bad, I will block the user. But like I said, that happens really very rarely, and I count myself lucky that I don't have to deal with trolls or whatever rude comments on a regular basis, because I'm certain that it would take much of the joy out of my video making. Anyway, question number 4. FOMO, fear of missing out. Ever felt it? Ever acted on it? Oh yes, for sure. There are a couple of different FOMOs that I succumb to. The first, of course, is because this is BookTube, that everybody is talking about a certain book and I haven't read it. And maybe I don't even feel inclined to read it. And when I started, I felt that, I had to engage in a conversation. If everybody talks about a certain book, I had to talk about that as well. I don't do that anymore. That was just, like I said, in the old days, 3.5 years ago. So now, if it's about books that I haven't read, that's just the way it is. There's sometimes also FOMO if people are discussing something. If there's a tag going around that everybody does, or like now, Vlogmas, everybody's talking about Vlogmas, and a lot of people are doing Vlogmas. That's just something that I tend to ignore. And then there is the gadget FOMO, and I'm horrible with that. So the last FOMO that I can remember, at least, that I succumbed to, I will show you a picture here, is the TBR card. I saw that on a lot of my friends' channels, and they, arrange their books in this card, and then for every month, and I didn't need it, but I bought it anyway for 2020. It was a Christmas present to myself, and I don't regret it. I'm really happy about it. So the gadget FOMO, yeah, well, anyway. Next question. Number 5, how hard is it to explain BookTube to outsiders? Not that easy. I mean, the close friends that I have in real life, as they call it, even though I think BookTube is real life, but the people I meet actually in person, they know about me being on BookTube, and some of them sometimes watch, but not a lot. So I think with readers, it's not that difficult to explain. I try to explain it to my publisher why it is a good way of promoting books. And they sort of nod, and then their eyes glaze over, and yeah, YouTube, BookTube. So if that happens, then I just stop talking about it. But I think most difficult, the explanation is most difficult if you're talking to people who don't read, because they don't understand the urge to talk about books twice a week anyway. So yeah, they will just, I also have to say my mother, she knows about BookTube, but she doesn't speak English. I showed her a couple of videos and a couple of my friends' videos so that she knows who they are. But for her, this is a really strange world, but that is the internet in general. I mean, my mother is almost 89. So for her, this world, this virtual world of internet is just not real. And I can understand that, and I accept that. So that's for FOMO. Number 6, BookTube book categorizing. How has yours changed? I thought that was an interesting one, because I have to say, before I came on BookTube, I didn't categorize books. I just read the books I wanted to read. Whether I always like to read science fiction, I like to read crime and mystery and thrillers. I read what they call literary fiction, which I don't anymore because I think it's a strange word. I didn't even know that word before I came onto BookTube. But I never in my mind categorized the books in that way. So that was something that I started doing, at least thinking about it, when I began BookTube. And I also paid more attention to certain categories. How much translated fiction do I read? How many authors of what they call people of color do I read? So those categories I thought were important, and for me helped me expand my reading. And other categories like, literary fiction, like I said, I don't use it. I just say general fiction because I don't really know what it means, literary fiction. And my background is German. We don't have that word in German. The other thing that is not in the question, but is sort of related for me, I never paid attention to book prizes ever before I came on BookTube. The only prize that I paid attention to was once a year, the Nobel. The Nobel in literature I was always interested, especially if it's a non-European winner, because a lot of times I could discover authors that I've never heard of. But the categorizing is certainly something that was new to me. The way of thinking of books in categories, I only started thinking in this way, like I said, when I came on BookTube. Number 7, BookTube-inspired changes in the way you read. And then there are a couple of sub questions, as you can call it, more critical, more vocal, more detailed. And I would say, I don't think that the way I read changed fundamentally. I was probably because I was just already too old when I came on BookTube. There's not much change energy left, I guess. Anyway, but I think it's not so much that BookTube as a medium changed it, but I think it's when you write reviews, when you have a blog, when you talk about books on BookTube, I had to think about what I wanted to talk about in a certain book. And before BookTube, I hardly ever talked to people about books. I have one or two friends with whom I occasionally talk about books, but my best friend who lives just across the street, she's an avid reader, but we have a completely different taste. So I talk about books with her, but not that often and not that detailed. So it was, for me, BookTube was, I didn't have a blog, I didn't write reviews before that, I wasn't on Goodreads. I joined Goodreads just before I started BookTube. So for me, it was more the way of that I had to think of a way of talking about books. What do I want to say? How do I want to structure what I talk about? And that was new to me. And I think that deepened and enhanced my reading because in the past, when I finished a book, and I didn't talk with anybody about it. And most of the time, 99%, I didn't think about the book afterwards. But if you want to talk about a book in your video after you finished it, it's different. You really have to think of what is important for you to mention to your viewers for that book. And I think that helped me remember books better because, as you know, I have a bad memory. Number 8, new skills, editing, filming, public speaking. As you can probably guess, no. I mean, I use iMovie free software. I don't have a fancy camera, as you can probably guess from the sort of lightly grainy picture quality. I don't even have a microphone. I use the iMovie editing software right from the start. The only thing I do is I, edit the clips. I edit out, when I think I really say something that is not understandable. But I don't edit throughout the clip. So you only have, when I talk about books, I always film one clip about one book, and then I stop, and then I film the next portion, the next clip of the book. So you have these little breaks in between books, but not while I'm talking about a book. You just have to deal with the way I talk about it. I don't like if you watch videos where you always have these, cuts in between. I don't do that. And the only thing I really do in addition is that I pop up pictures of book covers here. And that's basically it. Maybe at a certain point I would want to expand my horizon buying a camera, but so far I just didn't feel like. And as for public speaking, I was a lawyer for 25 years, and so it's not new to me to speak to an audience. What was new is that I don't see the audience. I mean, in a courtroom, when you give your oral arguments, you obviously see the judges, and that's basically the only difference. But I don't think that I, acquired more skills than I had when I started. So no, unfortunately. Number 9, BookTube-inspired new book discoveries. Excuse me. Yes, certainly. I think every week. I have watch also a lot of BookTubes. I have, of course, favorite channels. And I discover books that I hadn't heard of. I would say at least 2 every week. Not always that I then immediately buy them or download them or read them, but the watching BookTube and being in communication with people with lots of different book tastes certainly expanded my my book reading horizon tremendously, and that's fantastic. So yeah, I really love that. And the last question, number 10, the famous BookTube community. It took me a while to feel that I'm part of a community, because I watched a lot of BookTube before I started. I watched, I think, for a year and commented. And then once you start, after a while, you acquire your own community. That's regular commenters, that you remember the names, and then you have other BookTubers whom you befriend, you do buddy reads, you talk to people outside of BookTube, and then at a certain point, I would say after 2 years, I've really felt that I had my own community of people to whom I talk regularly in BookTube and outside of BookTube, and that's really fantastic, especially when friendships develop that go beyond BookTube, so that you first start to do buddy reads, and then you talk to people regularly about your life, not only about books, and that's just wonderful. So I love that. Anyway, those were the BookTube side effect questions. I'm not going to tag anyone because this tag is a couple of months old, but if you watch it, and if you haven't done the tag and you think you want to do it, please consider yourself tagged. I love to watch these kind of tag questions when you talk more about, BookTube, and so please do it if you haven't done it yet. And anyway, as for my viewers, thank you very much for watching. If you celebrate Christmas, a very Merry Christmas to you next week. As always, I'm looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you all soon in the next one. Bye-bye.